In 1945, Nazis were defeated, and Germany was in utter chaos. The Allies decided to disarm and divide Germany, but just after 2 years, they decided to rebuild and recover the German economy. The Allies, who initially thought of destruction of industries, started investing billions of dollars in them. But why? Was it a propaganda or a genuine concern over German people?
Children playing in ruins.
And I mean, they were close to starvation.
Just look how quickly Germany pulled itself off the floor.
Industrial production soared.
And it's a powerhouse of Europe.
And this was the man who performed it.
The war had turned Germany into ruins. Millions of people who were displaced were trying to return to their home that no longer existed. In this shattered nation, Allied decided to implement Morgenthau Plan, a strategy that was made to disarm and divide the nations. This led to deportation of millions of German civilians into Allied countries who worked in coal mines and also constructed roads and destroyed infrastructure. The French and the Soviet made German people to work in harsh conditions, whereas the American and British used the forced labor but not too aggressively. During this, the Allies discovered the wealth of knowledge and scientific technology present in Germany. So, each of the Allied countries launched their own covert missions so that they could extract the knowledge. The US secretly deported over 1,600 scientists and engineers who worked in Nazi Germany in Hitler era and integrated them into top secret missions. Among them was von Braun, who was the chief architect of V2 rocket, and he was also the chief architect of Saturn rocket, which was used in the Apollo missions. The rising tension between the US and Soviet fueled the raids even more. They raided office, firms, laboratories, R&D departments, and everything, extracted over 1,500 tons of documents from Germany. This included blueprints for rocket, weapon designs, industrial processes, and also psychological and medical innovations. And also, they found a design of tape recorder which completely reshaped the broadcasting industry in USA. But soon, the Allies realized that these exploitations creating similar conditions that existed after World War I. And using these situations as leverage, Hitler spread his propaganda and came into power back in 1933. But Allies didn't want the history to repeat. On January 1st of 1947, America and British unified their sector, forming a buy zone, which would be easy for administration and also recovering effectively. A year later, France joined this buy zone. However, on the other end, Soviets weren't that happy, and they preferred to stay separate and form their own sector. And this led to formation of West Germany, which consisted of America, France, and British, and East Germany consisted only of Soviet Union. Because the Soviet and America were in ideological war, the US, who were focused on exploiting Germany, realized that if Stalin offered a better condition, the people would favor him. And this will push Germany again into a dictator's hand, which they wanted to avoid at any cost. And also, Germany was a powerhouse of Europe, and without that, it would be impossible to recover the economy of the whole Europe. So, the US started investing billions of dollars into German industry, also providing them food, shelter, and also raw materials. But with this came the new leadership. Sir Brain Robertson issued new directives telling all British troops to treat Germans with dignity and respect. However, to win back the trust from people, the Allies needed some German face so that the people could trust on them. It's also important to remember that not everybody fell for Hitler's propaganda. Among them was Ludwig Erhard. He was an economist and had deep understanding of German economy, and he was appointed as director of economics of the buy zone. Konrad Adenauer, another former mayor who was untainted by the Nazis, and he, with his influence, became the first chancellor of the West Germany. The first thing Erhard did was to carry out monetary reforms.
He decided, without asking anybody, and against the will of the American occupation powers, he decided to give up all price controls.
which replaced the old currency with a new currency called Deutschmark. The Reichsmark, which was old one, had become completely worthless due to inflation, and people of Germany started trading in black market or used barter system to exchange goods like cigarette or chocolates with American soldiers. But when Erhard proposed this, his advisors warned him that he is going to make a terrible mistake. But when he approached Allied authorities,
Erhard replied, Herr General, my advisors tell me the same thing.
but still, against them, he implemented the new currency. However, when the new currency was implemented, it completely changed the market.
It started the markets working with free prices. Instead of nothing being in the windows of the shops, everything started to come up. And that began the German economic miracle.
And the very next year, he became the Federal Minister of Economic Affairs. He invested heavily on housing, agriculture and social security, and also crucially reduced the taxes. In 1949, first elections were held after the war, and people surprisingly voted for democratic parties, which was a clear sign that people preferred democracy. The Chancellor Ednier supported Allies' policies by decentralizing the power and giving control for the local bodies. This made that their states had more control over the region, and also they can quickly access and solve the problems of their citizens. But there were several tensions, but on a large scale, the Allies were successful in establishing democracy. In 1948, US implemented Marshall Plan, replacing the Morganton Plan, which was previously implemented. The main purpose of these plans was to rebuild the war-torn economy, modernize industries, and break the trade barriers. Among the other countries, Germany received major aid from these plans, which invested billions of dollars in industries. Cars, which were the pride of Germany, became dominant again. The Volkswagen, Porsche, BMW became dominant automakers and started exporting their cars, which made Germany the powerhouse of Europe again. The investments that were made by the Allies started repaying them, and the GDP grew by 8% every year. The key figure here is Erhard, who made important policies, and Adnier, who made Germany politically stable. But also Allied played a key role. And crucially, it was German people who embraced the help from the people who were described as enemies before the war. The British, who initially hated German, even described them as aggressive, militaristic, and not to be trusted. By the end of this recovery program, 10,000 British soldiers married German women. Even today, the relationship between Germany and the Allied countries is considerably good. So, to conclude, Germany, being a war-torn economy which didn't have even food for the people and shelter, became a global economy and powerhouse of Europe in just a decade. This is famously known as Wirtschaftswunder or the economic miracle. Even though it might be a propaganda or using them for their own sake, still the point is that they came forward to help even though they were the enemies. If you like similar stories, make sure you subscribe. Thank you.